Welcome back to the Burger and Fry podcast, where we make a lunch into a conversation. Here, we piece everything together, just like a burger and fries. And a burger just isn't complete without some fries. So let's introduce our fries. Kody, a natural selection enthusiast, and Dalton, who has a major in speciation. He is well known for naming the Pizzly Bear, if you guys know. It's a mix between a grizzly and a polar bear. So how are y'all?
Yeah, I'm doing just fine. Glad to be here.
I'm doing good as well, and I thank you for recognizing my work on the Pizzly Bear.
Of course, dude. That's amazing. I don't even know they could do that. Alright, that's good, man. So, what is this natural selection stuff? How does it even work?
Well, to summarize it, natural selection is nature's natural way of removing weak characteristics from living things and species. So, for example, if you have 3 beetles that are born in a jungle that's mostly green, and then you have 2 of those beetles that are green, but 1 is brown, it's most likely that brown beetle is going to die off faster than the other 2, because the other 2 can blend in.
Oh, yeah, like camouflage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just like
Smart.
that. Yeah, but there are also 3 things that probably aren't commonly known among people about natural selection. It comes with variation, heritability, and reproductive advantage.
So you have to have those 3 things?
You have to have those 3
selection,
things, or
okay.
It's not natural selection.
Cool.
So, using my other example, brown beetles and green beetles are clearly variation. They're not the same.
Right.
So, that's the first. Heritability. Let's just say theoretically that the father is a brown beetle and the mother is a green beetle. That would make sense as to why you can get green and brown beetles, so heritability. And third, a reproductive advantage. Like I said, camouflage. The other 2 green beetles can survive in their environment because they're green, and their environment is green. Their camouflage matches where they are blending in. However, the brown beetle doesn't. It's out in the open. So, for example, if a predator, maybe some kind of bird walks by, it's gonna pick off the brown beetle and not the green ones.
So the green beetles are more fit to their environment.
Exactly. They have a reproductive advantage.
Can you explain fitness to the viewers?
Right. So fitness is kind of like a measurement on how well an organism or a living thing can reproduce. Yeah. So in this case, the green beetles would reproduce because of their reproductive advantage.
And Dalton, I heard you were talking about the 5 fingers of evolution. What even really is that?
Well, the 5-finger method is a mnemonic that explains evolution. And the pinky is where you start at. It's genetic drift, and it's a random change in a population that changes allele frequency within a population, and it reduces a population. Your ring finger is non-random mating. If a species with a certain trait only wants a certain trait in its mate, so it's not necessarily random. It's more like they kind of go out and pick whatever trait they want from their mate. Mutation is your middle finger, and it's just changes in the variation in the gene pool, and new traits are made overall, so there's no real catalyst, it just kind of changes. And then your pointer finger is the gene flow, and if members of a population move out of a gene pool or move in, which basically means if certain members of that population leave, or if new members join that population, then the gene pool will change. And that's,
it almost incorporates those into its new gene pool.
Right, yeah. Okay. And then the final finger, the thumb, is natural selection, but Kody already had explained that one. So.
All right. So with natural selection, I got a question for y'all.
Yeah, of course.
So when I was younger, I would go out with my uncle and we'd go hunting, and we'd always go for the deer with the biggest rack, and so would all his friends. Because we always would try and show off, we caught this deer with 9 points, and you can only catch 5. But nowadays, whenever I go out hunting, the biggest I've seen in the past 3 years is a 5-pointer. So is this natural selection or what?
Well, it sounds like, yeah, it is natural selection to me. So, to explain this in natural selection terms, whatever you'd like to say, obviously, yeah, you go for the deer with the biggest horns and the biggest deer you can find, obviously,
Yeah.
So, The thing is, if, like you said, you've been hunting in this area for like 3 years or a while, a long
13.
time. 13,
Very
yeah,
long.
a long time, right? So, here's the thing. Obviously, you're not going to just find deer out there with huge horns, right? You got small horned deer. And not all the time, people aren't usually looking for it. You know, maybe you don't shoot.
Mm-hmm.
So, here's the thing. If you have a bunch of hunters for the past 13 plus years or so, hunting and targeting huge deer with huge horns, then obviously the amount of deer with huge horns is going to decrease. It's going to become less and less, and they're going to be more and more targeted, right?
All right.
So that means that deer who usually aren't targeted and usually don't get killed at all are probably going to have a better chance to go and repopulate with other deer.
Oh, the reproductive advantage
exactly,
that we're talking
right?
about.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah.
So, since that happens, obviously, the amount of deer with big horns is going to decrease, and the amount of deer with little horns is going to increase.
Yeah.
So, right there, you have variation between the horn size and the body size.
Right.
You have heritability, because that's, well, that is
They
an ability.
inherit
Yeah.
the antler size.
You
from the
can
fathers.
inherit a certain antler size, and then you also have reproductive advantage because deers with little horns aren't going to be hunted as much. So yeah, that would be a perfect example actually with natural selection. So yeah,
So it's like the population changing over time rather
yeah,
than just the individuals?
basically,
Okay.
yeah.
So is it just this area in which this is happening, or?
Well, actually, no, it's not. There are deer, all over, in certain environments, whether there's hunters or not, that adapt to things going on around them. For example, like here, there might be hunters, hunting deer, and that causes deer to have smaller racks or antlers or whatever. But then there are areas in the world where deer aren't as nearly as hunted as they are here, and they've actually evolved to have bigger racks to attract females. And this is called convergent evolution, and it's changed in an environment that prompts the same adaptation.
Oh, so like, if there's like two separate populations isolated from each other in the wild, if there aren't any hunters, they'll grow to have bigger racks. But whenever hunters are introduced, they'll have the same adaptation to have smaller racks because it's the same like environmental hazard.
Yeah.
Oh, so that happens all around.
It can happen anywhere. Yeah.
Oh man. So like, if having a bigger rack is a reproductive advantage, will like the species just continue to grow bigger racks and like get like a 30-point buck because it's like an advantage?
Well, actually, so this is where a reproductive advantage becomes a disadvantage. Because, I mean, if you imagine it, it's common sense that if you're a deer and you have a huge pile of antlers on your head, it's not going to be fit for when you're running from predators or through the forest.
Like fighting each other.
Exactly. Like,
yeah.
you can't maneuver and whatnot. So this is where, like I said before, fitness comes into place. How well a living thing can reproduce. And, if you have deer running around the forest, they can't maneuver and they can't, get around as well with huge antlers, then, they're not exactly
They're not
going
as
to be
fit.
they're not going to be at an advantage anymore to reproduce. They're going to be at a disadvantage.
Uh-huh.
To further back up, what Cody's saying here, Burger, back in my day when I used to go to college, we actually did a study on the Irish elk,
Oh, really?
which was a species that had gone extinct because their racks had gotten too big. And because of the environment around them, it was just such a disadvantageous trait.
They couldn't get around anywhere with like
Yeah.
30 points on
They
it.
basically killed themselves with evolution.
Yeah.
It
So
was,
it's like a reproductive advantage just becoming a disadvantage just
Right,
based
yeah.
on whether or not they're fit to an environment.
Yeah,
Alright, that's cool.
100%.
That's cool. Alright, so like kind of on an unrelated note, but still a question about natural selection. What are wisdom teeth if we can like inherit them? And there's variation. Like I only have one wisdom tooth, but I know my brother had to get 2 out, and my dad had to get all 4 out. So like, wouldn't that be natural selection?
No, that's actually, that's a good question. No, wisdom teeth aren't, they are not, an effect from natural selection. Wisdom teeth are things we call vestigial structures. In other words, they were traits that were useful at one point in time, but now they are useless. So,
What were wisdom teeth used for?
wisdom teeth were actually used for grinding out your raw food back in those days.
Oh yeah, because they like couldn't cook.
Exactly. They didn't have like all the prepared meals like we have. They had to have like more dense kind of teeth or more teeth in general. Yeah, but they have no reproductive advantage today.
Oh.
So
it wouldn't be natural.
exactly,
It doesn't meet that third
It doesn't
requirement.
make that third requirement, so it is not natural.
So natural selection has to have all three. There's
It
no,
has to
in
have
between.
all those three: variation, heritability, reproductive advantage. All right.
So yeah, that's basically it. So like in essence, natural selection is just like a non-random selection of like a like an environmental hazard, whether it be like predators or a lack of a food source, that prompts advantageous traits to like emerge more because either the disadvantaged ones or the ones without the mutation that makes them better they can't get any more food or they can't kill like a certain prey.
Yeah.
It just makes that advantageous trait more common over time, changes the population.
Yeah.
They don't just, it's like, oh, I need a longer neck, boom, like
exactly.
Inspector Gadget type thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. It's like just like exactly how you said, just like simple term, just it's nature's way of taking out the bad characteristics and leaving the good ones so they can continue.
So like, I guess even though like I think it'd be good to have more points on a deer, it's just my perspective of that being better. But in reality, we're killing all the ones with more points, so it becomes a disadvantage.
Right. Yeah.
It's all relative.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I thank y'all for coming, man. I know the people listening will be thankful. I know I'm thankful. This was really enlightening.
Yeah. No problem. Thanks for having us, man.
Last question. What's your favorite burger?
Jalapeno popper bacon burger.
Where's that from?
Wendy's.
Wendy's.
It was only for a limited time.
You gotta
That
have
sounds good. Did they put the jalapeno poppers straight on it? Or?
Straight on.
Dude,
And
what
it
was
was
it?
Dude, Hulk burger with just like patties, cheese, bacon, all that like.
Pig from Top Hill Greasy Burgers.
Yes.
Dude, that's my favorite place too.
I love Top Hill Greasy Burgers.
Gotta love it.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, this has been the Burger and Fry podcast. Thank the fries, and let's go eat.
Yeah.